How are we? You okay? We're good? Awesome. So, look at me. It's just so, okay, before I go into Cleo, it's really difficult to choose an elder to acknowledge because my journey to where I am as a person, there were many people who are elders, and several of them are in this room currently, who poured so much of themselves into me. So I'm lucky to be able to say that I have many elders to thank for this journey and throughout this process. So I want to just quickly just acknowledge people and everyone who poured into the room. If you're in the room, I'm not going to name all of you, but thank you for what you poured to me. Now, that don't count my time. Get y'all keys out. So, I decided to honor Cleo Monaco. And you may or may not be familiar with who this is. And I discovered him after I was already radical, focused, gay, and passionate. I was 18. Already a leader, quote unquote, in the community. I started an organization, which was a youth-led organization called Kevin. And it was an opportunity for young people between 16 to 21 who wanted to do things in the community to come together. So I was already doing that work. When I got an invitation to travel to San Francisco to participate in a really small retreat. And it was a retreat for Black gay men from all around the country. And so I was feeling really honored to be invited to participate at such a young age, but also to be acknowledged as a leader in this community. And when I got there, I met Cleo. And Cleo is a person who does things differently from the traditional way you do anything. And so we get off the plane, we get in the car, and we walk in the door, and immediately the retreat starts. It's like, put your bags down and come to the circle, right? Don't recommend that as a strategy for how you but it started just like that. And what he asked us to do, and it was about 15 of us in the room, and this was professors, attorneys, activists, students, architects, right? It was a really broad range of individuals. And he asked us to make a list on the wall of as many powerful leaders in the world that we can think of. Anyone you feel like just changed the world in a radical way, write their name on the board. And so this is my time in front of all these historians and professors and educated people to show that I belong, right? So I began making a list. I remember some of the names I mentioned. I was like, Oscar Wilde. I bet you didn't know I knew who that was, right? And then I was like, Queen Elizabeth, Anne Frank, William Shakespeare, Winston Churchill, right? Mahatma Gandhi. I begin to like, I'm smart, I belong, I'm a leader, I know stuff, right? So we're all making this list. We make this list, and it's about 100 names go on the wall. And he then asked us to put a circle around all the Black people that was on the wall. And out of 100 names that these Black gay men came up with, only 2 names look like us. And he asked us, what did that mean? That when we think of great people in the world, we don't think of ourselves. And we don't think of anyone who looks like us. And that changed a lot of things about me, and it absolutely changed the trajectory of where my life was headed. And I was familiar with the gay community, because in the gay community, I was really invested in the gay community, right? I started the program at the GLCCB as a teenager, so I was involved with that. I knew about the gayborhood. My adopted father was a white gay man, right? So I just knew all the gay things. And I knew none of it looked like me. And I knew that there was a divide that I had to do every time I walked out the door as a gay man. And every time I walked into the GLCCB, every time I walked into the gayborhood, I had to leave my blackness behind and begin. And what Cleo did for me was a surgery of some type. He made me realize how important it was to walk into every space whole and to stitch myself back together, and made me analyze what was happening in the movement, the LGBT movement, and how harmful and painful it was for people who looked like me, and how much work was needed so that it could really be a safe space. And that changed my world, that changed my life. And he does this work all around the country. And I had the pleasure of becoming more of an adult, right, and getting some additional skills where I became an evaluator, and I began to travel the country evaluating national programs. So I was excited, maybe 10 years later, to evaluate his program nationally and travel the country and see how his program was working in 10 different states. And saw how many people had the same exact experience of the very first time they walked in a space and recognized that they had to leave part of themselves behind every single time. And through Cleo's programming, they were able to stitch themselves back together and be whole. When you think about being healthy, it's impossible to be healthy if you can't be whole. If you can't really authentically be yourself. And as much as we pride ourselves, word used intentionally, about our queerness and our gayness, it's really harmful to be that in a space that will love for you to be fabulous, but absolutely ask you to leave your blackness behind. And so Cleo does work, that's radical work, and allowing people who look like me to put their name on the board and recognize the work that's happening outside of the curriculums we get in schools, outside of the news you see, and recognize what it means to be black and same gender loving, to operate from a cultural place of affirmation, to love yourself wholly and fully. And that work means a lot for black people who are so desperately looking for a place of affirmation. And the other thing I'll say before I go is his work is radically important. And I wanted to talk a little bit, in case you didn't know who he was, I decided to pull up just a little bit of his bio. Cleo Monago is an African, this is from Wikipedia, which means you know you made it if you're on Wikipedia. I'm still trying to get on Wikipedia. That is the moment where I say, see Wikipedia to get my bio. Ooh, I can't wait, I practiced that email already. Cleo Monago is an African-American activist and social architect who coined the term same gender loving for African-descended or black people who identify as gay, lesbian, or bisexual. Along with his activism, he's also a blogger and columnist, now he's Dr. Monago, and he rejects the terms gay, bisexual, and lesbian because he believes that they are white Eurocentric constructed identities which do not culturally affirm the culture and history of African-descended people. He's also the founder of organizations and institutions around the country. And one of the things that he made me realize that was important is that as I did this work around the country and locally, every time I went to an LGBTQ community center or activity, 100% of the times that work was happening in a white neighborhood. And I wondered what was happening in the black neighborhoods, and why could we not find equally safe and affirming spaces that empowered us in black spaces? And when I could not find this anywhere nationally, I realized more than ever how important Cleo's work is. And honestly today, as those who don't know, the former executive director of the GLCCB, I've officially resigned, and I decided that I wanted to do more work that's rooted in creating spaces for black people who identify in the spectrum. And I recognize that that is a life passion. It's because Cleo reminded me of how important this work is and how important it is to continue the work of those who came before you. And so I want to continue his work and his legacy and the work that I do. And I think it's radically important So thank you, Cleo, and I.